Committee meeting. It is 5:34. It looks like we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. Sherry, can we do a roll call?
Dr. Baker? Here. Dr. Boozer? Here. Mr. Casillas?
Here.
Mr. Caribou?
Here.
Mr. Kozbowski?
Here.
I always say. Mr. Lear?
Here.
Ms. Bitkowski? Here. Ms. Beislin? Ms. Moore? Ms. Poole?
Here.
Ms. Sanders? Mr. Thomas?
Present.
Ms. Thornton? Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Whitehouse? And Mr. Williams?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. So we have the agenda. I know it's a bit deceiving. I apologize. Thanks, Jonathan, for pointing that out. But it has layers to it. We're going to look at Press 114, hiring process and criteria, board member conflict of interest, and access to district public records. And I also have D in their general discussion Q&A. I know I've talked with a number of you about some general policy issues that we just don't know. Is it something that we need to adopt a new policy on? Is it something that we need to examine our current practices? Is it something that we need to get ahead of in anticipation of some things? So when we get to that point, I may prompt one or more of you to talk about some of those items as you feel appropriate. But do I have an emotion to approve the agenda? A second? Okay, we got Matowski Baker. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good. Let's move on to our first item. That's press issue update 114. A common theme in this issue is related to Title IX regulations. In case you weren't aware, the U.S. Department of Education is expected to release a final Title IX regulations in the next few months or later. These regulations would replace the 2020 Title IX regulations and would require extensive updates to existing policies and procedures governing discrimination based upon sex, including sexual harassment. And so part of these are recommendations in part because we're waiting for the recommendations as we go through there. I'll kind of point out where that's where we've gotten attorney review on some of the things, and they've said, hey, based upon the way things are right now and where we anticipate them to be, this is our recommendation. Others are going to be more generally, let's pause right now until we get final guidance on exactly what those regulations are going to be. I say that because our first policy is a new policy recommended by press. It's 2270, discrimination and harassment on the basis of race, color, and national origin prohibited. It's actually a new policy. And based upon attorney review and discussion, it's going to be one that we recommend we don't adopt. And here's the reason. We have policy right now, 520 and 720, that address a good chunk of this. Now, a good portion of this language is very relevant and needs to be adopted. But our recommendation from the attorney was to incorporate a lot of this language into both of those policies, into our existing policies, instead of adopting new. Now, we don't have updates to 520 and 720 today because they're waiting on what those regulations are going to be. But for tonight, the recommendation from our attorney is not to adopt this new press policy 270. Any questions on that one?
So just to be clear, that the recommendation is not to adopt because it doesn't, we already have policy for other protected classes, and we're going to just incorporate new language into that policy so that we're not having multiple policies for different protected classes. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. it streamlines our existing policies. If you recall, we had a lot of kind of one-off policies in our old policy manual. And so, some districts are going to choose to take this option. Others, are going to do some customized stuff. It's the recommendation of the attorney. But right now, I think what it's hard is that we don't know what the regulations are going to be. And so until we get those completely, I think the recommendations is pause and adopting anything new completely. Let's see what the regulations are. They believe they can update our existing policies to make it more streamlined with our current practices. We do anticipate a lot of work to come. I mean, if you recall, we brought our attorneys down, and they did extensive training on Title IX back in 2020, and we anticipate probably more of that to come. Orlando?
Yeah, I did speak to Jennifer Smith Thursday and around this topic of Title IX, and she will be coming to the district. She's going to give us a couple of dates. She anticipates a 3 to 4 hour training to provide the overview of all of the changes for building principals, for all administrators, not building principals, all administrators.
And I just wanted to add that your recommendation is in alignment with what all of our LUDA districts and superintendents are hearing the same thing, to wait until it's completed, because they know there's probably going to be something that will help streamline it. So it's in alignment with everything that we're all hearing the same thing.
Sounds good. Linda?
I was just going to say what Dr. Boozer did. I was looking at some other school district. Everybody knows that's like my off time fun reading, is to look at how other school districts are doing things. And I noticed a number of them are adopting the new Press 114 without going into any of the pieces with respect to Title IX. So it's super consistent with how everybody else is doing stuff.
Wonderful. We'll move forward. The next policy is 240, board member qualifications. This policy is updated for continuous improvement. The cross-references and footnotes are updated in response to a 5-year review. Again, as part of our current practices now, we want to make sure that every policy we have is no older than 5 years old. Now, we reviewed every policy here recently since March 2022. But this is one that's on the docket for review, and our review recommends the adoption as indicated here. 2250, really similar here. There's actually no changes here to this policy at all, no footnote updates or anything. It's just, again, part of our continuous review. And the recommendation would be to accept the policy as it currently is. Next policy is 260. Again, this policy is unchanged. The footnotes are updated in response to a 5-year review for 260. Moving on to 140, communications to and from the board. This policy is unchanged. The footnotes are updated in response to a 5-year review, but no changes there. And please don't hesitate to stop me if we're moving on. You want discussion about anything?
Dan, just a question. When you say the footnotes are updated but no changes, how do we know if something's updated or not?
So, and I apologize, we got this outlated. Well, so you'll know if it's updated. To answer your question specifically, Joe, let's see if we have one. You'll see one up here. But, yeah, you'll highlighted and crossed out red is going to be deleted language, and then a green with underline is going to be new language. You can't click on those hyperlinks where it's like highlighted blue in your handouts, but there would be some footnotes that press would provide. That's a good question, yeah. To 150 again, this policy is up unchanged. It's just another 5-year review.
Sorry. I'm going to make everybody go back. Page 5 of 79, 240, board member qualifications, student ambassador program. And so is this something we want to keep in there?
I would like to keep it in there, especially now that we're back from COVID and things are getting about normal again. So I've talked to Tammy about going ahead and reaching out to both you and Sarah to help with this process, because I don't know how the process has worked in the past. And so I do want to have that conversation. We were going to do it a little earlier this year, but it got kind of different. So I didn't want to bring kids into that.
Joe, will you say what page you're on again? I'm sorry.
5.
It's 5 of 79. It's student ambassador program, and
240.
for a couple of years, we provided names, but it just hasn't gotten there. If we'd followed what's in the old procedures, which I know we don't have to follow, we can change, but by May 1st, we would have given you names, which means we would have put out stuff out to our students. Information if they wanted to join, wanted to be considered, and we'd have a whole selection process prior to that. So I guess if that's fine, I think Sarah and I can probably do it in the fall, which means they would
Yeah.
get a late start.
Yeah, and that was the whole thinking, because at that time when Tam and I were talking about it, like I said, it was a little different.
Yep.
So that it didn't make sense to try to do it at that point in time to ask you all for anything. So we were thinking maybe we could do it as soon as school starts back open.
Yep.
And we may still be able to meet that first board meeting deadline or in September or whatever. So we can see.
Probably more likely October.
October, And I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
Dr. Baker, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, when we initially looked at this policy adoption, the board really felt strongly about maintaining that student ambassador program and keeping this language in, because it's not part of press. We pulled it from our previous policy, but the board certainly wanted to. I think COVID really derailed it.
It did.
They were coming, we had students ambassadors at our board meetings very regularly, and I hate to blame things on COVID, but I think it was an effect of it.
Yeah, and several districts do this, but it's not necessarily policy, it's just part of their procedures and what they do. So I don't care either way if it's in policy or not, but I still would like to keep it going.
Very good. If we're okay moving forward, 265 is the next one. Oh, 260, 260.
I don't think we, yeah, I think it is 260.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, 260, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead in this binder. So this is another policy that's going to be affected by our Title IX update. Additional changes will be made and applied by the board once those regulations are finalized, hopefully soon. It's a little tough because there's some regulations that need to be in effect August 1. We just don't have those things yet, but our attorneys are monitoring this closely, and we anticipate some changes here as soon as we have more guidance on that.
Page 16 of 79 of that policy, you actually referenced the policy that we just said we're not adopting.
So, yeah, I apologize. So does your copy have a red cross through it?
There's a red cross through the
Okay,
I have
yeah.
a no.
So, yeah, on
It's
page
green.
5 of 5 in that policy,
16 of 79 of the packet, I don't have a 505 of that policy. It's the last page of that policy.
yeah, so
And
Yeah,
last paragraph, we
yep,
have.
there should be, that's crossed out. It's not on yours, and I apologize.
Okay.
It was just kind of how things got printed out. So we're on the last page of 260. Yeah, in the cross-reference grievance procedures. This will come up in other areas as well, and I apologize, it's not indicated. We literally were on the phone with the attorneys at 5 o'clock But that, yeah, no, and I appreciate you pointing that out, but yeah, on Sherry and my copy right now, the green highlighted and underlined 2270 discrimination and harassment based upon race, color, and national origin is crossed off. So we are not, yeah, and anywhere else that is referenced in this update, assume it's also crossed off.
Okay, thank you.
So if we're at, 265, again, additional changes will be coming here. Our recommendation is to adopt this, but we are anticipating more changes to this policy in the very near future. And just to double check. Yep, that one, that wasn't referenced there. All right, moving on. 420, fund balances. This policy is unchanged. The footnotes are updated in response to a 5-year review. Recommendation would be to adopt our current policy. For 110. For 110 is also a 5-year review. No
Damn it.
changes.
On 4110, nothing is struck out.
Yeah, so the footnotes are probably new in for 110.
Okay.
It-
And what happens?
Go ahead.
And what happens is when it's for review and monitoring, they, and we have no changes, the only thing that will update is the date, once I accept it.
There's just no date.
Yeah, the date will happen once the board approves. Yeah, there are no changes to that policy. All right, 4190. This was actually one that this is kind of down to the wire on with attorney review here. Targeted school violence prevention program. So you got changes in the green there on the front page there, number 3 and 4 is new language. And specifically, this policy and footnotes are updated in response to threat assessment in Virginia public schools, model policies, procedures, and guidelines. The Virginia Center for Schools and Campus Safety, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice. I know we've met with our attorneys to discuss this. Orlando has discussed this with our local police department. Orlando, I don't know if you wanted to share an update based upon the meetings you've had with them and their recommendations, but our attorney does recommend that we do adopt this policy as written by press.
Yeah, this really aligns with our expectations of if you see something, say something, we want any and all people to report any suspicious or dangerous activity that they think may impact themselves or our students. And so CPD was certainly in support of this. Jeremy and Shane were there as well, and we'd rather get 10 calls and 9 of them are false rather than get none and have an issue at one of our campuses.
So then really, we're just aligning practice to policy. Because the practice is already there that we're doing these things. Okay.
All right. There's no other questions. We'll move forward.
Do one question. In the comments, it said in alignment with this policy, sample administrative procedure for 190. Will you then work through that on the administrative procedure side, or how is that process working?
Yeah, the how is certainly the next step if the board, chooses to adopt this. But we do have some updates to our administrative procedures. We were certainly waiting to find out whether this is something we were going to move forward with. But yeah, there's a number of these policies that are going to require a significant amount of work in the development of administrative procedures that accompany them. Good question. All right, we'll move forward. 510, equal employment opportunities. Yeah, this is a reformatted policy with legal reference updates, cross-references, and footnotes updates. Here's an example of where 2270 was referenced there. Once we get our policies updated, the cross-references should, read 520 and 720. And so there are a couple grammar edits that suggested, I think we could recommend those, and then some updated legal cases that we can update, but in the cross-references, we would strike out 2270 discrimination and harassment as we did for those other policies. All right. 520. This one isn't ready. We are working with our attorneys on workplace harassment updates. And so at this time, it would be our recommendation not to make any changes until we have those changes to 720.
I think we skipped one,
I
Dan.
think 5100 was your next one. I think you got to 520 before 5100.
Yeah, 520 behind it. Unless it's just out of.
The staff development program.
5100?
Yeah, page 35 of 79, Dan.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Press puts their stuff out in a certain order, and we put ours in our, Sherry set it up what made more sense to me in numerical order, but anyways, I apologize for that. 5100, staff development program. Our recommendation would be to accept this policy, and there's a specific question that we need to answer. And if you look at the bottom, I'm not sure what your page is, but it would be the third page of the policy. It references a little Q1, and then the fourth page on the bottom. The question reads, for districts that have a practice of providing instruction in life-saving techniques and first aid in their staff development programs, insert the following optional paragraph that restates. Our recommendation from our attorneys is to accept this new language, and Margie, you and Ken talked about this a little bit. So we'd like to adopt that paragraph at the bottom. It says, an opportunity shall be provided for all staff members to acquire, develop, and maintain the knowledge and skills necessary to properly administer life-saving techniques in first aid, including the Heimlich maneuver, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and the use of automated external defibrillator in accordance with a nationally recognized certified organization. Physical fitness facilities staff must be trained in cardiopulmonary resuscitation and the use of automated external defibrillators. So that is language we'd like to add to the policy. Joe?
I'm fine with adding it to the policy, but what does that look like when you say that? All staff?
Would that be going with our,
don't
We
do
already
CPR
offer every
training.
2 years for all staff to
Do?
take CPR. So every other year, yeah, whether they take it, we offer the classes, so usually about 300
Okay.
say yes and show up. But then all coaches go through, and I think all PE teachers go through on a PD day, and of course all
It's already
nurses.
done.
The IHSA has kind of upped their
We
game.
use American Heart.
Yeah, and we,
HA?
Go,
yeah, the IHSA requires that all coaches have this now.
Put that on the
so-
record.
Dan, page 36, number 1, or I'm sorry, yeah, additional training requirements, number 1. Is that something that we're already meeting? Or does that require,
Well, I can tell you this, it's something that's currently in our policy. Whether,
just reading it,
yeah,
professional development for teachers, administrators, school resource officers, and staff regarding the adverse consequences of school exclusion and justice system involvement.
see what the footnote says. So reference 6, right, is it press plus 6? It says, these in-services, this is optional. We currently have it in, but these in-services and/or trainings are required by state and/or federal law, but are not required to be specific in board policy. Putting this option list into policy will help the board monitor that the required in-service and training topics are being covered. While it is possible to pick and choose, this practice is likely to add more confusion to an already confusing responsibility. Unless noted, the school code does not mandate the frequency in which the training must occur. Several other trainings that are mentioned in laws other than school code are addressed in other sample policies and procedures. So what's your question, I guess?
So I guess my question is, in addition, the staff development program should include each of the following. And then you look at number 1 under there, and I'm not sure, is that something that's being done? Do we have a training on justice system involvement, all of those things? And if so, who's doing that? There's some really explicit things in there. And I didn't know if it's optional, should it be in there? Or should it be taken out? Because it's not, I don't know, just asking for a friend.
It's a good question.
This kind of falls with your work too, that you're doing, and I'm not sure, but I'm sure the discipline procedures, practices should be seeped in culturally relevant pedagogy and all the work that was done around equity. So I'm not sure, so I would ask that you take a peek and see what we have and make sure it's outlined, because before we take it out, I think we just need to make sure that we have it.
Well, and to clarify, it's optional to have in the policy, but it's still required to be done.
That'd be done. Yeah, so we can make sure it's somewhere. And I think you do work with some developing the appropriate disciplinary methods that you work on with your staff. And now whether or not it's happening in the buildings, that's another question. But whether we have it, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah. And I see some of the promotion of student attendance is through Dr. Hart.
Yes, Dr. Harden does a lot of that.
And engagement and the different discipline, the progressive discipline is also applicable to promote healthy school environment with alternative things to suspensions and things like that.
That's covered in SB 100. Yeah, we just want to make sure people are doing it.
Good question. That's what is good about policy. It reminds us of what our responsibilities are.
And I see a lot of the mitigating, the letters of mitigation come across, which is that just popped into my head. So I will say, it's happening, we just don't really maybe have a name to it. I sign those quite often.
Excuse me. All right. Any other questions on 5100?
I have a question about the trained in CPR note that we were talking about earlier. I'm wondering, it's just a little bit vague for me in the language, because is it currently certified, maintaining a current certification in, or with, rather than, yeah, they were trained, but are they maintaining current certification? They're currently certified in CPR, which would recur every, I believe it's 2 years. So if they must be trained, yeah, I was trained, but I'm not currently certified because I've let that lapse. I'm just wondering if that's clear enough. Does it mean maintains or has has their CPR certification and that it's current? Just a question. I was trained, but maybe 10 years ago. That's not current.
Well, I guess
And
I
it's
read
not
that-
linked to certification, so I was just curious about that.
I guess I read that staff shall have the opportunity to maintain their certification. No? Oh, the last.
Not in the
sentence.
last section. The last section says physical fitness facilities staff must be trained in cardiopulmonary resuscitation and the use of automated external defibrillator, which they would get in the CPR certification. So must they be certified? And must it be a current certification? And if so, I would assume so, but the language doesn't necessarily suggest that.
Is that one of those where our PE teachers?
Yes.
And so, and coaches,
There has to be someone in
athletic
the
directors,
building
I would
trained.
think that they, yeah. Must
So-
be current, so we might have to take a peek in to make sure that that's, if it says must be and it says law, we have to,
Yeah, so a physical fitness facility is any place with a gym, right? So all of our gyms, all of our fields.
Yeah.
And so there's supposed to be somebody present.
Does it,
Certain hours.
does the training have to be current? I think that's the question Mike was asking. Should we put currently trained or just trained, period?
Or certified.
Or certified in it?
I think I would say currently
Certified.
certified.
Certification lapses, though,
Yes.
But if it lapses.
then you're no longer certified.
out of certification, the driver's the building.
But you've been,
Every site has to have somebody. So you could be, both of you could be certified. Only one of you needs to be the record, the person on the record that if the AED device is needed, can administer it.
If we have- if we can change it-
It just says that they have to be trained. And it doesn't say they have to be certified. That last sentence does not say that. Yeah.
I would keep it as trained
too.
and not add in certified, because then you're putting a time frame on everybody's trainings.
Because it says persons performing CPR are generally exempt from civil liability if they are trained in CPR. So it doesn't say if they are certified. It says if they're trained. I know law school.
it also reads that I read that as all physical fitness facility staff members must be, rather than one in the building, must be.
What line is this?
But
Might want to look at, the law reads a little differently than that.
So I would say before we accept and add that statement, that we need to get clarification.
I can say,
It matches.
as a principal of a large building, and we talked about this when we were talking about building rentals, I have to be able to assume that all my PE teachers and coaches have this.
We
Right.
don't want to assume.
I don't.
We want to make sure.
But we want to have it in place so that I can safely assume
yes.
that that's the case.
I think I'd be more comfortable finding out exactly, does this paragraph go with what the law says too? Look, you all, I'm under scrutiny for everything these days. I'm just being fully honest.
we
As
can
it
get-
relates to the physical fitness
Yes.
facility.
Yeah, we can get clarification really specific to training and certification, right? They use the term training, so what does that mean exactly?
Right.
What
Because
we
training
need to
could
know.
be watch a
Save
video
schools.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
Right?
potentially.
Or you were trained 6 years ago,
Right.
so.
And this is only particular to the building that has the physical fitness facilities.
Every building.
Well, I do, but I also have two buildings on one campus.
But you have somebody on the
But I-
Somebody
campus.
on campus.
You have somebody on the campus.
I have somebody on the campus,
Yeah, so I
but maybe
think you're
not in the
fine.
building, so that's the only other,
think-
like, as long as it's campus, right? And it
Yeah.
has to be a gym space used for that purpose.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm with Joe. I would want to be able to say all of our folks are, but I really want to make sure we are covered, though.
We will get clarification on that. All right. I have 5300 next to my, which one do you guys have? 520. Okay.
Yeah, John,
520 is under attorney review right now, and so our recommendation is not to do anything with 520 till we get further guidance on Title IX.
I'm sorry. If you look at page 40, I think it helps us with our question. When it talks about, isn't 40 also part of that one we just did? And it just says, something about these in-services and/or trainings are required by state and/or federal law, but are not required to be specified in board policy. Putting this optional list into policy will help the board monitor that the required in-service and training topics are being covered. While it is possible to pick and choose, this practice is likely to add more confusion to an already confusing responsibility. So it does not mandate the frequency in which the training must occur. So it just says it has to be trained. They have to be trained. So I think that helps. And I could be reading that incorrectly. It is the end of the day.
Intentionally keeping it broad.
Keeping it broad is on purpose. I'm sorry.
And then that becomes a part of the
Yes,
right, like the checklist of
yes,
exactly what's happening and who is where, then we can go and.
right. And then that way, we can go with a reasonably assumption that our folks are trained. Is that better? Is that okay? Okay. All right.
Now 5300, or do you have another? Well, that one. 520 is under attorney review. It's all right. These are, yeah, this is 535 is another policy under 5-year review. And again, this is Pressa's cycle. We're ahead because we just adopted, but there are no changes here. This policy is unchanged, so our recommendation would be to adopt as it is since we just reviewed it. 540? 540. Yep, this is another 5-year review. No changes to this policy. $540. See that one, Jonathan?
it's on the back.
There's a lot of paper there.
Page 46.
I got confused by 640 and 540.
It's real easy to, hey, trust me, that's real easy to do.
But 640 is the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all the same thing.
There's a number of them like that. All right.
710.
640, 710. Well, 710's got, some more
It's under
words.
review.
5100 already. We did 5100 already. We just got done doing, how about 5300 now?
5300.
Is that the next one? All right. 5300. Yeah, legal references, cross-references, and footnotes are updated. There. And so our recommendation would be to update this. Unless there's discussion. All right. I'm ready for section 6. Is that where you guys are now? All right. I have 640, but it might, okay. Good deal. Yeah, this is, again, another one that's part of a periodic review. We just looked at this recently here, so our recommendation would be to accept as part of a review process. $710. $710 is also under attorney review. you know, where it notes 270, 2270, you know, those are going to change. Obviously, when we get our policies updated, there's a couple grammar things and some legal updates. So we could adopt the legal updates in the grammar updates where it says board policy in there, but we definitely wouldn't adopt the reference to 2270 on page 1 or page 2. If everyone's okay with that. $720 is under attorney review. That is going to be updated once we get more regulation. $7,180, prevention and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment. Oh, 7,160?
Is that uniforms? Delete it, we don't have that.
Yeah, so, yeah. We have already eliminated 7,165. The board eliminated this at their last policy adoption. It's updated as part of the 5-year review for press, and so I apologize that didn't get pulled out, but we don't actually have that policy.
It's gone now.
It's gone, yeah.
I just have a question over what was there, like what we had to review, and I get that the policy's gone, but it looks like 4 was added. Press was saying we should add 4, and is that in response to
Yeah,
a law?
when we looked at this, Joe, I think it was even you that pointed it out before that, like, this really doesn't even go, number 4 doesn't even go with this policy so much. I think we actually added that language into, I'd have to check, maybe 7,160. Do a quick check here.
What are you thinking, Joe?
Well, graduation's next week, and all I'm thinking about is everything we had just, over the last month, watched from college perspectives. And we always let students decorate their caps, and we say as long as it's appropriate. But I think we're having a hard time at the high school level, at least, determining what's appropriate when it comes to the Israel-Gaza conflict. So, just, I don't know that that's a question other than a statement.
It's a good comeback too, only because this.
If it's somewhere, it would be great if we do have it somewhere. Because I can see getting an email from someone because they see someone with a cap with the Palestinian flag on it or something.
What number, Sherry?
I just remembered off the top of my head.
What Joe's getting at?
That's all I needed. I will make a note of it.
Yeah, well, that's where we added it. Thank you, yes. 7,160.
District also does not prohibit the right of a student to wear or accessorize the student's graduation attire with items associated with the student's cultural, ethnic, or religious identity or other characteristic or category protected under Illinois Human Rights Act.
Awesome, perfect. That's what I
Yeah,
needed.
I get them confused sometimes, but yeah, I think
It helps.
it's exact same
can't-
language. We knew it didn't fit quite here, and so we put it we adopted it February 2024. So it's newly updated. You're good.
Thank you.
No, thanks for reminding me. All right. 7,180 now. So we have some language update here. Prevention and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment. Second paragraph. On page 1. On page 2, we are taking out some footnotes there, some the footnotes actually have, bless you, changed according to the Illinois Common Statutes and Public Law to include additional basis for bullying, requiring data collection by districts and requiring notification within 24 hours to parents, guardians of students involved in bullying incidents. That's our current practice right now.
Any of this be adjusted as a result of the new Title IX?
Yes.
So we'll be adjusting this again, possibly.
So we could wait, or we could adopt as is. What do you think, Orlando?
I think we can adopt as is. The bullying legislation was brand new last year. Jennifer can give us the update, provided paperwork to see the process changing. I think it just includes a wider range of things for us to monitor, which I think we're on.
Is F on page 64 covers that? It is going to be, because it's part of the 270.
Yeah, we'd cross off that 2270, and then once we get
So do you,
720 updated.
so do you just wait?
No, they're saying go ahead and adopt.
Oh, well, go ahead and adopt and just cross it out.
Yeah, we're going to cross that piece out.
Got it.
Is there any, sorry, is there any other place in policy that all the new categories are listed? We did?
Wasn't there a definitions? Why do I remember sitting with a bunch of
And I
definitions?
know I missed one board policy meeting, so it sounds like that might be the one that you did that to.
Wasn't there
So all
a-
of these things, origin, industry, physical appearance, socioeconomic status, all of those things in green have been added somewhere else as sort of a general, we're not going to discriminate or do bad things based on these things in this district.
That's part of the new.
Your question specifically is, where did those things show up in every other
My
policy?
question- Okay, so my statement is, I don't want it to just be in the bullying policy. I like adding all those categories. I would prefer that they be in whatever non-discrimination policy we have. Make sure that all those categories and all.
Well, when 520 and 720 get updated,
We'll make sure
that's
it's
where
in
the
there.
language is going to be.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like you've said that to us before.
Yes, we talked about that.
I think we did talk about, and you were there. Yeah.
Pregnancy and parenting one, I'm not sure I knew all that stuff. I think that's all new language.
But there was
No,
something.
there was
No, no,
something
no.
that you
It
said you wanted
definitely-
to show
'cause
up
actually-
other places. That's what
Yeah.
I saw.
I did, I pointed out other things where we had more inclusive language.
Yes.
And now this is the most inclusive language, and I just want to keep putting it out there. Wherever we have the most inclusive language, it needs to be also in our general
Agree.
non-discrimination. Yes.
Oh, that's a good point. Any other questions on 7180? All right. That's the end of
7190.
7190 we have.
You got something in AI there?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a carryover from Press 113. It was also, so it was listed in our 114 in our customized updates, but it's a carryover from 113. This is something that we worked with our attorneys on, and part of the question initially was, really when we looked at page 70 and 71, there were some questions as to, our reporting procedures and our current practices. We did discuss this with our board attorney, and essentially, we're told by not having this in our policy, we're skirting the law in no less words. And so it is required. Orlando, I know, has been working on this more closely. Do you want to talk a little bit about it? This comes up in some special ed areas as well. But I'll let Orlando talk a little bit more specifically about it, because I know he and Suzanne were working on this policy.
Yeah, my conversations were relative to page 71, and a conversation with Champaign Police Department regarding the immediate notification to law enforcement. I am the superintendent designee, and this already occurs. The procedure will be how the CPD maintain and follow up and track the many instances that we will have to document next year. So right now, I maintain them. CPD does not have access. This will allow them to have access because they are expected to sometimes file a case to look into every situation. So we'll have some procedures around that.
So I thought we talked about specifically defining battery. Would that also be in the procedures where we will define battery? We discussed aggravated battery versus, and that sounds more procedural, right? In doing something different with our forms so that we don't have staff assault on the same form as staff injury. So is that also procedural where we'll?
So in our conversations with Jennifer, CPD's definition of battery does not align with the ISB's because this is from Illinois State Board of Education. We have to follow their definition of battery. It would not align with CPD's definition.
Where is that?
Their definition is, and you can go to,
It's referenced in one of those?
you can go to SIRS, SIRS, and it will give you their legal definition of battery.
Well, my concern is that maybe it'll be addressed in procedures. I think that we're gonna need some training around that, right, for our staff sake, because it does come up, yeah, and it even comes up with students with disabilities as we talked, right? And how do we constitute a battery or an assault when we have students who are displaying behaviors, right, as a mode of communication or. Right.
Right, and I think a broader conversation, Suzanne, is with CFT to make sure that we're all on
And CESB.
CESB.
Yeah,
All
so-
employees,
To provide a little context,
what's being reported
Yeah.
would not fit, I think, any of our definition of a battery. You have a student, 4 or 5 years old, the way that they, express themselves is when they get excited or angry might be through pinching. And so every time that student pinches a staff member, right now, they're filling out a staff assault form. And so getting some clarity on what types of things do we want them to report. Right now, that list is astronomical, and CPD said if this is the list that we would get, 90% of these, we wouldn't, even if we wanted to investigate, the student is not of age, and it wouldn't fit the criteria. So certainly a conversation to bring CFT and CESP to the table, and then certainly training for the staff around what we will report by filling out that form.
yeah, and we've gotten requests to provide some documentation of when we've reported these instances to our local law enforcement. So that's really kind of pushing this conversation forward. So our reporting, we're required to report. The Champaign Police Department can decide whether they are going to investigate and do any follow-up on it. But defining exactly what is, aggravated battery, I think will be important. There's going to be some training necessary. Maybe some new forms to differentiate between those, accident forms and work comp forms, because we recently redid all of our forms, and it has made the process streamlined, but now anytime, I'm not going to say anytime, but with more frequency, we're getting these types of accident reports and assault forms from employees that work with students with moderate to severe disabilities, right? And what's happening to them is really a manifestation of this child's disability. And so clarifying that for them will be really important. Suzanne?
But I also, right, and I think this policy is saying we are also recording them and reporting them too. And so that is part of our due diligence in recognizing the number of reports. So we're not okay. We want people to be safe, right? And
Absolutely.
at work and not be getting hurt. And so this, working with Orlando, working with CPD, even reporting this for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds will be.
It's a little bit
record.
hard to read this, and I think we all agree, because we try to not criminalize student behavior, and yet we have this policy that we have to enact so we don't skirt the law, which basically has the distinct chance of criminalizing a lot of student behavior we never would have brought up to the police attention before. And I think, this is something that you probably ought to have on hand so that when the community does come forward and complain that we're criminalizing student behavior, that we have something on hand to show we are following what the state says we have to follow, if that's really what ends up happening. Then the second thing is sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't the designee. Like right now, Laura is the designee sometimes, especially if it's rising to something where we're questioning whether it's an expulsion or not, since you're the hearing officer. Just for the future, I'll just put it out there. It'd be nice if Orlando wasn't the hearing officer and the person who's over school discipline for the district. It'd be nice if the hearing officer were someone separate from that process so that he could be the one that always is the designee when we discuss things. Might be a good time for a change, if we can.
I disagree, too.
And I second reviewing the use of the packets, if that's on the table. From a building level perspective, the packets without an outlined protocol on what one is filled out for versus not filled out for has become.
You're talking about the assault and injury.
Correct. All of those have become quite cumbersome at the building level for every little incident that's happening. So I think some guidance in administrative procedures for when those things are not used would be beneficial for lots of stakeholders. Maybe Sherry too.
All right, any other questions on that one?
I find it interesting, Dan, in the first page, 67 of 79, number 2 has a specific reference. Students who are under the influence of an alcoholic beverage are not permitted to attend school or school functions and are treated as though they had alcohol in their possession. There's not a similar statement for anything listed under 3, including marijuana, cannabis.
I think that's because you can't prove it necessarily. So when we do alcohol, Mike, at least back in the day, in those events and in those situations, you might be able to administer a breathalyzer test that could determine whether the student was under the influence. I don't know that we have that capability for other substances, and that might be part of the rationale for that.
They took it out, it used to be. If you smelled like it, or there was the assumption that you had, but you can't prove it.
Right.
Because it was, but the eyes are red. Oh, okay, I have allergies.
Right.
You know, things like that. So they did remove that for that very reason.
Okay.
Yeah, it isn't uncommon for us to get reports that we have, I'll just say people that smell like marijuana.
Always.
That smell like marijuana, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. And so, yeah, that's a good point, Jonathan. I would like to move forward in the agenda. This isn't part of press, but it was a request by one of our board members to look at board member conflict of interest to 100. So when we did the review, we adopted press's policy, and it didn't include our previous language, which is written here in blue and underlined. And so this proposal would bring back policy language that the board had previously adopted specific to board member conflict of interest.
Is this like legal
Yeah, no, this language predates me.
It might be interesting to have the attorneys look at it also so that it's aligned with the conflict language that exists in the state. Because like there is like language for other elected officials about like how many months out of office before you know you can participate like in a bid or a RFP or something like that. Might be handy to just have it all lined up.
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
I don't know,
Unless anybody
other
here
than
has any more history on it.
I agree with Linda, but it seems like, from just a layman, it seems like okay language.
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's plain English, but just
Yeah.
All right. We can do that. The next policy is 250. And we actually did tweak this on adoption, but we've did not include the language "or designee." And so that's the addition to this policy right here. Sometimes FOIAs take a collective effort.
takes a village.
It takes a village. There you go. We- All right, we'll move forward to 530, hiring process and criteria. Board member Holder had also requested that we draft a policy or adopt policy language that address nepotism in the district. And so as we did some research, we found some districts kind of had a standalone policy, and some districts incorporated an anti-nepotism policy into their existing policy. We felt like, again, to streamline our policy process, we like the approach to add the language right into what we currently have, and so this is a shot at doing that. This is language adopted from another school district in Illinois that is also part of the press services. That's one of the advantages of being part of press. You can do some searching online to see other districts' policies, and this was a customized policy for a district that we are adopting, proposing for review.
So I'll throw an example out. Let's say I have, this is a true thing that happened, I guess. So
There's a true thing, and yeah, you're building.
it might be, yeah, so what is this going to mean for us?
Yeah, so I think that's the question. What is it going to mean for existing situations?
We probably need to do some research to see, do we have this type of situation going on where there's indirect supervision? I don't know that we have a lot of them, and so that was my question too. What are we going to do?
I don't know, the hard part for me is, like, I can ensure non-evaluation. I can ensure that if a staff member who might be supervised gets in a situation that has to be investigated, that, you know, the person who would be over that staff member isn't a part of that as well, right? All of that. but some things are part of the
It's unfortunate that you
job.
have to spell that out. You would think it's common sense and
Yeah.
common practice, but you have to spell it out.
There's just a lot there when it talks about
Doesn't say that goes beyond just
hiring.
that.
Hiring, I think, is something we can, supervision, review, recommendation, and/or decision-making in any matter concerning salary, promotion, demotion, discipline, transfer, layoff, recall, evaluation, discipline, discharge. Oh, there we go. Or determining work duties or assignments. So let's say I have an associate principal who that's their job, is to determine supervision assignments. Then what? And they're married to someone in the building.
Yeah, no,
They're
we.
what?
Married.
it-
So,
Joe has an administrator that has a spouse that works in his building.
I didn't know that.
And I think there's a lens to,
Oh, I did know that. I forgot.
yeah. I'm thinking of the context of a large high school, right? Or a middle school. I think when you get into some smaller campuses, that becomes even more complex because there are less, what's the word I'm looking for?
Layers.
There are less administrators, there are less bosses in a building, right? Where you can divide those responsibilities out. And I think that becomes a little more complex when you have less opportunity for that.
Is there a way to write something that would be like an indicator that something violated nepotism versus something that sets this all-inclusive, we aren't even going to have any situation where it's even a possibility? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, can we, a way to, it would be like, we're going to trust the professionalism of people, and, or here are these certain things we're going to make sure in policy won't happen. But this, the way this is written, I have a teacher who can't remain in my building or an administrator who can't remain in my building. And so I'm not for this policy.
I've been there where I know what you mean. I was a second in command, so to speak, in Springfield. I stepped away from everything when it came to my daughter when she went for a promotion, when they did the interview, the recommendation, had nothing to do with it. Because so I just stepped aside and everyone else did that. So it can be. There was no policy about it because you don't want to discourage people from coming back to the home district and working.
Where does this come from?
Exactly. Exactly, and Laura did nothing for her daughter. We made sure. Ken, same thing with his wife. If you notice, anytime it comes for recommendations or anything with your building, he steps away and Dan does it or I do it. Same thing, just because it's just the right thing to do and, but I don't know the answer to this. I think we need to do some more research before we adopt anything.
Can you
So,
disaggregate?
Where does this part come from? Like, this recommendation?
Board Member Holder had recommended that we
mean,
explore a policy that addressed nepotism in the district. If you're asking where
What,
this
like this
specific
yeah,
language,
yes.
what high school, I think this was Antioch High School.
Okay. Are there other,
I think we need to explore the
are there other languages that we can look at? Because I think this is to the extreme. I mean, I've seen it to where you had some flexibility and you still were able to get your,
I like part of what Joe said as well, when there is proof that something is going on, we need to address it. I think we need to have something in there, because I'm thinking of a couple situations where I'm like, yeah. I think we need, I love what you're saying on that, but I also think we need to explore, as you're stating and Joe stated as well, that we look at some other districts, and does Press have anything on this that they would recommend?
And I wonder too.
Wes doesn't.
They don't, okay.
I like what Dr. Boozer's saying, but, and it does say something, that Press doesn't have anything for it, right? But if you were to keep this, maybe disaggregating this one paragraph into two and saying like, here are the, if you look at this idea of hiring, supervision, maybe not supervision, but like hiring, the review, all of these things, we could probably agree that that should probably be in policy, right? If there is a hiring practice, if you have a connection, you shouldn't be involved. You shouldn't be their evaluator. You shouldn't be these types of things. And then, to what extent you create a second paragraph to say these things could be monitored for efficacy and things like that, but we're not saying that those relationships or that dichotomy can't be there. But the top paragraph might be, these are our non-negotiables of, it is the expectation that this is the policy when it comes to those things. Exactly. Hiring, firing, termination, promotions, salary, all of those things.
I think the hiring piece too can be, you could spell that out a little bit too. So like if one is already there, you don't bring the other one in. You can be specific to things of that nature. So if the principal's already been there, you don't bring in the husband, the wife, the daughter, the nephew, or whatever. You just don't. Or vice versa. So I don't know.
This, Dan, might be one that starts with procedure first. Because that's really what we would have to sort out, right? We can create the procedure, if we can create the procedure around hiring, if we can create the procedure around review, those are easy ones to put in a policy. But if you're getting stuck on, could I create a procedure, which I probably could, for, an associate and a spouse where work duties are really kind of the sticking point, then maybe the procedure is different, right? Maybe the procedure becomes a sign off by somebody else. And so the policy can be worded so that we know we can do it. It's very difficult to set a policy up that we
That's
know
true.
we're gonna blow.
That's true.
You can start with procedure and then go backwards to the policy.
Yeah.
I would not start with this policy.
I got some questions about some of this in the paragraph above it anyway. Because, it's like if the superintendent is responsible for recruiting and personnel, but if the superintendent recommendation is rejected, the superintendent must submit another, but it has to be rejected for something that's rejectable, not because I just don't like you, or I don't like you, where you came from, or I heard something or whatever. That needs to be spelled out more. I don't like that language.
So you'd like to see grounds in there.
Yes, for some grounds, Yep.
So if I'm hearing the committee's recommendations to do some more research. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan's point about defining or breaking it down into other parts, but that last sentence of the main paragraph is very clear. It's a little wordy, but I mean, ultimately, it's clear on the position that any immediate family member of any administrator at the building level or department shall not be employed for any position at or later assigned to the building or department of that administrator. So that colleague, once a teacher becomes an administrator, then one of them has to leave, right? And so that gets tricky.
And that's a conversation you got to have with family.
Yep. And so what do you do after the fact that this policy is adopted? Is there grandfathering in of people who are already at the positions, or?
That's why I say we don't
Yeah.
adopt this.
And then it goes to the department, and when you have, I think there's a lot
I'll
more
vote
to it.
no on
a lot
any
to
policy
this.
that looks like this. Well, it has to be drastically changed.
Yep.
I think it gets to that professionalism. Your policy book is going to get really big if you get starting into the nitty-gritty and start outlining everything like that. You're opening the door to a lot of policy.
We just fixed.
Yep, I like everything that everyone is talking. I think this just, basically what I just heard is we need to do a little bit more research on this one.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
So I don't have any other policy specific to requests made by Board Member Holder. She did ask She did ask that, our committee look at policy specific to the authorization or access of emails, personnel records, and student records. Procedures for when IT authorizes or the district attorney for the purpose of litigation and FOIA officers to access certain information. She's not here to share anything specific with us, but I did want to at least let the committee know that that is an area that she wants to also look at. And then more broadly, she also wanted the committee to look at, and I think these are things more specific to our administrative procedures that we addressed at the board last Monday, but really the administration of the contracts, discipline, specific duties, grievance procedures. I think at the board meeting, we identified our collective bargaining agreements as to where a lot of those procedures are specific. But again, for the purpose of committee meetings, I did want to bring it to everyone's attention that she did ask that we discuss that. And so I am sharing with everyone this evening.
And just let the record show that IT does not direct anyone to look into anything. I do that. I give that direction. And only a couple people have I have authorized. We removed several people when I got here who had authorization to look at everyone's stuff. And so I went and I dwindled that down to just 2 people and 3, and I'm the 3rd one, and I don't do it. I took it off of I don't want to see it. I took it off so I have others that do it, but if I have to, I will. So with all the FOIAs, the 2,074,000 FOIAs we get in a day, we have to have someone who can go and look immediately at emails and things of that nature, so. And that's why we need to do a better job of training on, don't put everything in writing. Everything's FOIAble now, so what do you put in writing, what do you put in email, what do you do with those kind of things? We did a better job, we need to do a better job of training on that.
Yeah, it's not directly on that topic, but this one about all the other agreements we have. We don't want to start getting into the habit of putting those things back into policy again, because it just clutters policy way up. So I would argue you reference that there's an existing document, and then if people need to go look, and maybe the people who are directly associated, like we, for example, on the CFT, the bargaining unit contracts, there's sort of the HR pieces to those contracts, and then there's like the payroll pieces to those, and we have procedures we follow based on the payroll piece to the contract. But so if somebody asks, we can give it to them, but I don't want to have to put hundreds of other extra pages into this document that would make it cluttery.
If you do that, then you're changing
Yep.
how you negotiate.
Every time you get a new group of people.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have intentionally and traditionally kept those processes and documents outside of, just like teacher evaluation. That doesn't live in a contract, it lives in the evaluation process, right? And we've intentionally done that over the years.
And we have a committee that meets
And we have the para committee that
required
meets
by
for that.
law. and-
Yep.
All right. Well, that moves us to our last, just open general discussion. If anybody had anything that they wanted to talk about specifically related to policy, updated policy?
Yeah, Dan and I talked about this. We decided not to make it an agenda item, but to just make it a discussion point. We're gonna work on some procedures for things that have pre-existing policies, but we may need to come back in and then make sure that the policy actually works with what we think the procedure needs to be in terms of, like, student activity fund, right? So there's procedures, we need to take another look at them, but that may result in needing to clean up with some of the language around the policy piece. Booster clubs, we've been working on that stuff, right? So as we finalize the procedures, it's going to be necessary to go back in and make sure that the policy itself is not so out of line. We can't make it work. Conference attendance procedures, this is something that's been coming up with TNL and the business office a little bit more frequently. You and I kind of talked briefly about it this morning, right? So we're going to be looking at some procedures around that. So that may impact some policies, which we would need to know. And then student fee procedures. We do have a student fee policy proponent to it, but we do need some sort of consistency with the procedure to make sure that that's not getting out of whack. And then this morning, we talked, this goes to sort of some student safety issues, the procedure part around some of the policies about administering like EpiPens and when and how, and just the procedure part. The policy doesn't need to change, but the procedure that supports the policy probably needs a little bit of checking, just to make sure it's tight.
Okay. In general, it sounds right, it sounds good. I'm not sure who oversees what as much anymore. I think I have a better idea than we did a couple years ago. But we've been waiting a couple years now for procedures to get cleaned and procedures to this and procedures to that. And I think there are people who you're going to lose some history very soon,
Yes.
right? Or already are, right? And so some of the procedure work, I think, needs to get done. I feel as though there are people over departments in the district. I'm hoping that over the summertime, whoever's over a department can start presenting some proposed procedures to at least building principals or the people that it affects or something like that, so that we can start having sort of like solidifying what our new procedures are going to be, rather than continuing to refer to our old procedures. Does that make sense? Dan and I had a good discussion last week, and it really is like, almost like a determination needs to be made, which person is going to be over which old procedures. And some of them, quite frankly, you might go trash, garbage, right? Some of them might be want to keep, and some of them might be we need to adjust some things.
We've already done that.
Okay, well-
We're drafted, we're pretty far into the drafting process, so everyone that was involved in certain procedures, especially, like for me, it was all the business
Yeah, sure,
office stuff,
yeah.
right? So we spent 6 months walking back through procedures to say, does this fit? Does it fit the policy? Does it work?
So what's the next step?
So the next step is, I think, like, we're coming up here soon, right?
Yeah, so we are planning on rolling out two parts. The next step is at our June 5th meeting, having an all-admin PD on our administrative procedures. But to your point specifically, Joe, it's not the whole day. It's only part. It's not the whole day. But the second part is, right, there are still some procedures that are in the works, right? We've been working on field trip procedures for a good chunk of the year. We're really close. We've put some temporary procedures in specific to that recently and learned some things, right? Yeah. And so more work needs to be done there. So there's some things that are still not done. But we do have online procedures manual that we are going to roll out June 5th. And you'll be able to search it. It's going to look very much like our online policy manual, except it's not external facing. It's an internal system that will live on the intranet.
And the expectation would be procedures are gonna, it's been
Evolve.
so long, right, since it's probably been a good year and a half even since we looked at all the business office procedures, that now I know some of them are gonna have to get refreshed. The good part about procedures is that they can get refreshed quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
this is a great step.
Title IX is going to
Yep.
make us do a lot of things differently here,
Yep.
as an example. All right. Any other questions, discussion? Yeah.
We're gonna have.
Sorry, I let the cat out of the bag, but you asked, so you know now.
Okay, it's part of the work.
It's work.
Said we don't have it, and we don't know what we're doing, so, hey, okay.
Yeah. And it's okay for you, we want, I'll tell you, the hardest part about this process is not getting feedback.
I have to say, like, that actually was part of what I said before, like, I mean, you might, I don't know how you want to do this, right? Some things you may not care about feedback, some things you.
Just have to do because it's
Yeah, some things you might, I mean, let's face it, like, that's just, from a building principle perspective, that's one of the hardest things is like, sometimes we might have good feedback, sometimes we sit here and we read a policy.
Yeah.
Or we just don't care.
You all did a great job tonight.
What's that?
You did a great job tonight.
No, thanks, but, so I don't know how to help you know what you should get feedback on and shouldn't get feedback on, but you're right, you know, sometimes you're not gonna get it, Dan, because sometimes we read things and we're like, whatever, we don't care.
Right, no, I get it. I think,
It's not because generally we don't care about anything, because whatever people are asking about, we may be like,
It's not applicable.
what I'm talking about is if you know something isn't working, right? This is, raise your hand, right? And say, it would make more sense if we did X, Y, and Z as opposed to ABC, because, and this is how we can change it. No, right.
some others you want us to encourage to speak up, I guess.
But I think that's where Joe, you know, as we look at building leaders, as you look at who is in spaces, right? There's lots of new faces. And I think that is something that we need to be thoughtful of, is as we keep rolling through and bringing new people in, you wind up with this gap, right, of knowledge and understandings of all of these different things. And I'm sure June 5th is going to be well done, you know, and really thoughtful. And it's not going to, that's the piece.
I told the team, I said, we have several.
Yeah, well, it's,
I'm glad to hear you guys have gone through a lot, and we're gonna hear a lot, and there'll be more coming, so that's good.
yeah, all right.
You said you didn't want what we did before, what would be better? Because you have a lot to, key pieces to overview, you can't talk about everything. But time to talk about those big
All right.
know more about Linda's world than my assistant principal.
Well, I appreciate everyone's discussion. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Baker, Dr. Kozowski, all those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed?